When I was 17, my family disappeared without warning. They moved 2 states away and didn't say a word to me. The only explanation they left was a note on the kitchen counter that said, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I had somehow survived and built a life on my own, they suddenly tried to come back into it. I remember coming home that day at 17 to an empty house. No furniture, no clothes, no people, just silence and that note. It was the cruelest thing I had ever read. I didn't understand what I had done wrong. I assumed they were exhausted from pretending to love me. Later I realized they hadn't even been pretending. Growing up, I was useful but never cherished. When I was 13, I baked my mom a birthday cake by myself. She called it lumpy and walked away. At 15, I helped my brother study for his final exams while he mocked me and slammed doors in my face. At 16, I handed my entire paycheck to my dad so he could pay bills, only to be called useless later when I reminded him. I was always needed, never wanted. A week after they vanished, the landlord told me they had canceled the lease early. I had 7 days to leave. I stayed on friends' couches for a few nights until I ran out of options. Eventually, I slept inside a storage unit I rented with my last savings. I snuck into the YMCA to shower. I ate peanut butter straight from the jar for every meal. I used library computers to apply for jobs and pretended everything was fine. I finally got hired at a diner for night shifts. The manager was blunt but fair. She paid me cash until I could get an ID. Once, when I nearly collapsed from exhaustion, she let me sleep in the break room. I survived by sheer force. I bought a prepaid phone. I tracked every dollar. I watched free YouTube videos about budgeting and goal setting. That first year, I barely stayed alive. But I did. Things began to change when a regular customer offered me a temporary job cleaning office files. It paid 3 times more than the diner. I accepted immediately. One job led to another. I showed up early, learned fast, and asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. At 25, I started my own consulting business with a folding table and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had contractors, an office, and real clients. By 29, I had real wealth, savings, no debt, retirement accounts, health insurance. When my bank balance crossed 7 figures, I cried. During all of this, my family never contacted me. Not once. I occasionally saw my brother's name pop up online. He was married, still living where they had fled. I wondered if he ever spoke about me, or if I had been erased entirely. I didn't hate them. I was heartbroken. I went to therapy because I didn't want their damage to define me forever. I made a list of people who had saved me, co-workers, classmates, strangers, people who showed me what real support looked like. Years later, a podcast interview I did about family abandonment went viral. Millions of people listened. My inbox filled with messages from strangers who said I had finally put words to their pain. Then I received an email from my mother. The subject line said, "You're still our daughter." There was no apology, just a suggestion that maybe we could talk. Soon after, my brother emailed too. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I waited. My therapist urged me not to rush. After days of thinking, I replied to my brother first and asked one question: "Why now?" He said the podcast made him realize what they had done. He said he was young, that he had no choice, that he'd always wondered about me. I didn't fully believe him. Eventually, the truth surfaced. Money problems, failed businesses, medical bills. They didn't reach out because they regretted abandoning me. They reached out because they needed help. When I finally spoke to my mother, she admitted they had left me behind because they couldn't afford another child. She said they believed I would figure it out. I hung up on her. My father later emailed me asking for money. No apology. No concern for my life. Just a request. That was the moment everything became clear. I tried limited contact with my brother, hoping there might be something salvageable. But every boundary I set was challenged. Guilt, pressure, emotional manipulation. Eventually, my parents began showing up unannounced, harassing me, stalking my building, threatening legal action, and dragging other family members into their lies. It escalated until restraining orders were necessary. Even then, they violated them, broke into my brother's home, sent threats, used fear as a weapon. Standing in court and hearing a judge confirm that what they had done was wrong changed something in me. For the first time, there were consequences they couldn't rewrite. Later, I confronted them one final time, not to reconcile, not to forgive, but to end it. I told them they had lost access to my life forever, that I would protect my chosen family at any cost. I felt no rage, only clarity. And then the silence came. No more calls. No more threats. No more notes. Today, my life is full in a way it never was before. My brother is rebuilding himself. His wife and children are part of my world now. We eat together. We laugh. We create new traditions based on choice, not obligation. Sometimes I think back to that note they left on the counter all those years ago. You'll figure it out. I did, just not in the way they expected. I figured out what love is supposed to look like. I figured out what family really means. And I figured out that I was never the problem. I'm still healing. I still go to therapy. I still flinch sometimes. But I am no longer defined by what was done to me. I'm defined by what I built afterward, and by the family I chose.